Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Anareta Bashaliva, along with co-host Dr. Victor Fett, Dr. Katerina Shrey, and our program producer, Professor Larry Shrey. We host a weekly discussion panel on Russia's war on Ukraine with guests from Ukraine, military experts, medical personnel, academics, artists, literary figures, and relief workers. Our panel is recorded and circulated nationally and internationally. We appreciate your comments and feedback. Special thanks to Marshall University Libraries and MUIT for making this weekly event possible. If you are joining us live on Teams, please feel free to use the chat to post any question for our guests. A quick greetings to our viewers in Ukraine from Dr. Katerina Shrey.
Вітаємо наших слухачів в Україні з глибоким поклоном. Ми далі свідки вашого страшного терпіння і також вашої великої сили. Дякую вам за вашу участь в нашій тижневій програмі.
Thank you, Katerina. Today's guest will be introduced by Dr. Victor Fett.
Thank you, Anna. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's two speakers, Mariya Udud and Gregory Rudnytzky. Mariya is a vice principal at the Ukrainian Heritage School in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania, United States. She brings a wealth of experience and insight to our conversation, being originally from Ukraine. She holds BA in elementary education, MA in cultural studies from Franko National University of Lviv. After coming to the United States, she earned 2 Montessori certifications for children ages 0 to 6, and now she is a Montessori teacher and active member of American Montessori Society. Her professional interests include multilingual curriculum development, promoting intercultural activities. Ms. Udud is deeply committed to bilingual education and cultural preservation values she instills both in her professional work and in raising her 2 sons with a strong connection to the Ukrainian heritage. We also will welcome Gregory Rudnytzky, who is a May 25 graduate of this same Ukrainian Heritage School in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania, as well as Abington High School. And Gregory will be starting his freshman year very soon at Drexel University in Computer Science. Welcome to 180th meeting of Ukraine discussion program. Mariya, the microphone is yours, please.
Actually, the microphone first is mine, and then it will be yours.
Have it, Katerina.
This is thank you so much. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. In fact, it was Gregory's graduation from Ukrainian school that gave us the idea for today's subject, because that ceremony was so powerfully moving at a time when Ukraine is under siege and experiencing unspeakable horrors. This is the program from that graduation. It is by far the most elaborate and beautiful program I've seen associated with any graduation anywhere. So I'm going to kind of do a quick introduction, and then we will talk to our guests. So on most weeks, Ukraine's goal is to educate the English-speaking world about Ukraine and her history, her culture, and identity. And this, of course, is prompted by the full-scale invasion in 2022. And that remains our goal today, but we're also hoping on today's program to acquaint our brothers and sisters in Ukraine with what life looks like in the Ukrainian diaspora, and hopes of maybe encouraging them during these dark times.
Я про те, що от, наприклад, одна дитина займається, там півгодинки, щоб одна погралася, наприклад, щоб було безкоштовно.
Hang on one second here. Okay, I think we've got that fixed. All right, so my parents' generation of immigrants who came to the United States in the 1950s dedicated their time, talent, and treasure to preserving their Ukrainian heritage and culture for their children. And by the late 1960s, cities like Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, Detroit had large and thriving Ukrainian communities. And as a result, my siblings, friends, and I all grew up attending Ukrainian school, Ukrainian Scouts Plus, Ukrainian piano lessons, Ukrainian stores, worshiping a Ukrainian church, celebrating Ukrainian festivals, even banking at a Ukrainian credit union. And there are tens of thousands of people who grew up the way we did. And in fact, there are well over 1 million Americans of Ukrainian descent in the United States today. We are a product of our grandparents' and parents' resilience and determination to preserve our heritage and our language. At first, this was because Ukraine was under Soviet oppression, but then after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, they continued to pass down the language and traditions precisely because they feared that a day like February 24th, 2022 would come. So today's program looks into how that came to be. It's a chance to pause and to thank the immigrants now in their late 80s, those who are still with us, who scrimped and saved to build Ukrainian institutions in the diaspora and institutions that today welcome new immigrants and refugees. And we're going to focus specifically on a key institution in Philadelphia, Nasha Ukrainska Rivna Shkola, Ukrainian Heritage School. So for context, we're going to share a few slides first, just to put this into context. This is the Ukrainian community in Philadelphia, which is thriving. And I'm hoping if I did this correctly, someone tell me, can you see the slideshow on the screen?
Yes.
All righty. I think perhaps you may be seeing the wrong slide. All right. So do you see the slides or do you see the notes?
Just the slides.
Okay, perfect. All right. So this is the top picture there. There's a thriving Ukrainian community in Philadelphia. The top picture there is the Ukrainian Catholic Cathedral in downtown Philadelphia, and the 3 additional Catholic churches that you see there are within 15 minutes from my parents' house, just to give you a sense of how vibrant the community is.
We don't see the pictures.
Alrighty, I'm going to.
Yes.
This is, so I apologize, sorry, but we did a rehearsal right before this and it kind of threw things off. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go ahead and reshare. And fingers crossed that all will be well. Let me see. Good thing for editing. All right, let's try this again. You should see. How about now? Philadelphia's Ukrainian Saturday School, August 8th. Yes, on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Now, 4 churches?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, the one in the upper left-hand corner is the Ukrainian Catholic Cathedral, downtown Philadelphia, and the 3 other churches you see are within 15 minutes of my parents' home. Again, the point being to show you how many Ukrainians and how invested they became in continuing their culture, preserving their heritage. This is the headquarters of the St. Sophia Religious Association of Ukrainian Catholics. It is maybe 2 miles away from where the Ukrainian school is that we're going to talk about today. This is the Ukrainian Heritage Museum at Manor College, which is almost across the street from the Ukrainian school we're going to talk about today. There's even a Ukrainian Federal Credit Union. There is a Trezub. This is an Ukrainian-American sports complex where there are festivals. And now that brings us to the Ukrainian Educational and Cultural Center in the Philadelphia suburb of Jenkintown. And there you have the exterior of the building. You see on that little placard there some of the institutions that are housed in that building. During March of 2022, the Ukrainian Educational and Cultural Center became a staging area for packing supplies for Ukraine. And this happened across the country. There were many grassroots efforts of Ukrainians coming together and with help from people in the community, packing supplies, humanitarian aid, and sending it to Ukraine. And this was great. One of our previous guests, Dr. Ivankovich, talked about the connection with Ternopil because we knew where we were sending them. They were going to people on the receiving end who intimately and knew the folks who were sending it. So we knew that help was getting to where it needed to get. And so this is a list of the organizations that make their physical home at the Ukrainian Educational and Cultural Center. And you can see from this list just how vibrant that community is. You've got a whole range of things, but none of this would be here without someone educating each generation of young Ukrainian Americans. And that all important work is done by the Ukrainian Heritage School, which is the subject of today's program. So here is a photo from the very early years. And here is a photo from the current administration. And you'll see that our guest, one of our guests today is in the upper right-hand corner. All righty, so now I'm going to pause the sharing and say a few words, and then we'll start talking to our guest. I'm assuming the sharing has paused, and so I get to introduce the first of our 2 guests now, Vice Principal Mariya Udud. So weekdays, as Victor's already told us a little bit about her, weekdays may find her shaping young minds in a Montessori classroom, but come Saturday, Miss Udud steps into the role that is steeped in love and legacy. As vice principal of the Ukrainian Heritage School in Jenkintown, PA, Ms. Udud is more than an educator. She's a beloved mentor, cultural ambassador, and guiding light for Ukrainian children growing up far from their ancestral home. Originally from Ukraine, Ms. Udud brings both academic excellence and deep cultural insight to everything she does. With honors degrees in elementary education, cultural studies, and Montessori certifications, she blends tradition and innovation to create learning environments that are nurturing, dynamic, and deeply meaningful. Her students adore her, their parents trust and appreciate her, and her colleagues, especially those at the Ukrainian Heritage School, hold her in the highest regards. So whether she's leading classes, translating TED Talks, mentoring adult learners, or raising her family with love and intention, Ms. Udud embodies the spirit of lifelong learning and cultural stewardship. Her passion for intercultural awareness and multilingual education is not just a professional interest, it is a lived commitment. She is the kind of educator who makes you believe in the power of community, the beauty of heritage, and the joy of learning. We are incredibly lucky to have her with us today. Vice Principal Udud, welcome to the program.
Hi everyone, good afternoon to us who are in the USA and доброго вечора в Україні, бо я знаю, що це пізня година вже. Thank you so much for inviting me, and you said such beautiful words. And I think we are not here just to talk about me. It's because Ukrainian school is more valuable, and all the students and all of the alumni. That's what we treasure and heading to impact and influence our kids to give them that love that we brought from Ukraine, from our heritage, and to expand it to more and more of us. Thank you so much for welcoming me here.
Oh my goodness, thank you for being here, and thank you. Tell us a little bit about NURSH, about Nasha Ukrainska Heritage School, and in English we call it the Ukrainian Heritage School. Like how many students, who are teachers, volunteers? What does this look like?
So as of this year, we have a higher number of people kids, students who are enrolled in the school. As of right now, when I checked today in the morning, it is 570, which is almost 30 kids more than last year. And if we compare to the years, even after COVID, it's like twice higher number than it was before. So I know the war in Ukraine is not just happening in the last 3-4 years, it's more than a decade now. So I think that number is expanded more as people realize that's a need to be connected to Ukrainian culture, to Ukrainian language, and people who are just came to United States because of the war, but at the same time you have a huge population of students who have their Ukrainian heritage in the second or third or even the fourth generation. And I think that's the most treasury thing, that people are still staying connected, being so into United States society, but they are still having that bilingual, bicultural connection and having that inherited in their soul. And as of the teachers, as we have this amount of students, for the school year, we have 62 teachers, commonly for the lower and higher school. So we have 28 classes, and we have extremely high populated graduate class this year, as it was last year at 2 classrooms, and we're combined into 1 classroom. So that's a success even for us to have all high schools being at 2 grades, like A and B classes. So that impresses us, and it puts us into a lot of pressure, how high quality education should be in a Ukrainian heritage school, because we know we work with a very sensitive population, and the kids who are sometimes tired on a Saturday coming in the morning. So being very open to those conditions.
Yeah, no, I think we'll hear a little bit about the Saturday mornings from our second guest in a little bit. Yeah. I remember going to Ukrainian Saturday school. I remember having to get up, and now, of course, I'm extremely grateful, and we'll hear more about that as well. Do the parents participate? Do the parents volunteer in this? What's the role of the parents in this school? Do they? And back when I went, it was such a small organization that the parents served as teachers. They helped as assistants. But now it seems like you kind of have like a much more professional cohort. Do the parents still play a role in any of this?
I mean, the first and the foremost thing that we have, some of our parents even are hired as a teachers because we need that professional skills into the campus, right? But we also know that how hard is it for parents to bring kids in the morning. So we're thankful for them for doing that part of a job. But at the same time, we know that as a high number institution, we need to involve more parents into organizations. So for the last for the many years before and for the last 2 years, we tried to reestablish the parent-teacher organization so they can be involved in anything. And sometimes it seems like it's a small thing, but it's a huge thing, or packing, organizing something, bringing something. We also are open to invite parents because as they establish here into and finding their occupation in Ukraine, in the American society, they can bring their knowledge to the students, how they find themselves into a new environment, what are their jobs, and how do they bring this Ukrainian heritage into their lives. Just get that connection between kids who are coming to.
On my end, we're frozen.
Yeah, we're frozen here too.
Okay. While we're waiting for the screen to unfreeze, the parents played a large role in the. Oh, welcome back. We got a little bit of freezing for a second, but we're back.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are very open and we are very we are welcoming all parents' help as much as possible.
No, I appreciate that so much. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to be involved in this? When did you get to the Philadelphia area? What exactly is your role? And I guess the big question, what do you see as the primary mission, the values of Nasha Ukrainska Rідна Школа?
I feel like we all have our long personal history why we come to Ukrainian school and why we try to connect to Ukrainian community generally altogether. I came to United States more than 10 years ago, and growing up the kids year by year, we just started realizing like how is it we can connect it to Ukrainian community that is here locally. So I definitely will say that my connection to Ukrainian Heritage School comes through my older son, because we decided to assign him to be a student, and even it took us like 1 hour and something to drive every Saturday back and forth. It's still worth to do it because that's like I'm calling to them. That's every Saturday travel to Ukraine. We travel to Ukrainian Heritage School. So that's my big passion as my personal goal. But as being a culture teacher for 1 year and being an assistant for 1 year in the school, a job to being a vice principal was opened, and I just applied because I think I'm so passionate about education. I had my diploma back in Ukraine. I work in an American school here, and being so into Montessori, knowing the kids who are the kids and how to treasure their unique whole identity, it's like I feel like I can add something more, and if I will have a chance, I would love to join in. So I think it definitely a transition because being a teacher and being an administrator is such a difference. But I know that we are all coming to Ukrainian school to make it better, to make it more enjoyable for the kids, and to have as we have right now, to see that number of students who are enrolled in school see as an evidence that there is a need for Ukrainian school.
Have things changed since the war began with the Ukraine? You were there as a teacher probably in 22, right? And now an administrator. Have things changed since the war began?
I think the enrollment had risen exponentially. That's what we see just on the data. But I think even among the students, we see how we need to meet the needs of the students who just arrived because of the war. And I just recently spoke with some of our parents this summer, and they say like how kids are still so sensitive to the noises because they've been at the beginning of war and they still feel that fear. So again, meeting the needs of kids who are learning the language, who are getting themselves, finding a place into the community, into even American schools, it's just so important. And again, as generally we see it to the mission of the school, I feel like getting that feeling that kids who are growing up here and maybe they utilize Ukrainian language less sometimes, but they still had that practice of using the traditions, using the practice going to church, all of that that we've experienced as the kids in our childhood, I think that keeps us as a community all together. And I feel like being bilingual and multilingual or bicultural, it's such a talent and more benefits that brings us to the kids, because yes, they know English, but they have more than any English, right? They have something that they are grandparents, and just for them to feel like they need to value what they have as their background, that's also most important for us.
And we often on this program, we talk about the impact of the war on children. We have one of our regulars is a counselor and brings with her some therapy perspectives on what people deal with. My parents came, and there are other people on this in today's audience whose parents came as 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds from a war-torn Europe, and it's just sad how these tragedies repeat themselves at the same time. I guess it's very heartening that there is a community to come to, to be received. You're not coming completely to a strange land where you don't know anyone. You're coming into a community that knows, understands, loves, and supports you. And so thank you for all the amazing, the work you're doing. I appreciate this so much. And please stay on. I'm going to bring in our second guest in just a second. But before I do, I'm going to share my screen, fingers crossed, everybody, and show a brief 20-second clip. And this is going to be from the graduation from the Ukrainian Heritage School last May. The ceremony begins with 18 graduates walking under a canopy of traditional Ukrainian Rudnytzky. There is not, for our English-speaking audience, there isn't a good way to translate rushnik. Embroidered towel does not do it justice. The rushnik is a deeply symbolic, spiritual artifact woven with the fabric of Ukrainian life, heritage, identity. You'll see each of the graduates, and this includes our second guest, Rudnytzky, escorted by a kindergartner in the school, and you can see the pride and joy in the eyes of the parents as they hold up the rushnik, lining the way to the stage. And this is such a beautiful scene that I'm hoping to share with us right now. And well, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to pause for a second. Is it sharing with volume?
Yes, but no sound.
Oh, I can fix that. Try it again. All right, so hopefully does the sound work on that one?
A little bit, not much, but it was really good to watch the video.
Well, for what it's worth, the sound is amazing. In rehearsal, it worked perfectly every single time. So there's so much in these few seconds, just visually, then forget the music. The music is, by the way, incredibly upbeat, positive, vibrant, energetic, hopeful, happy, and you feel like you're at a festival. It's so uplifting, especially given the sad things that are happening. And there's so much in those few seconds. So much joy. You can see the various embroidery styles. When we were growing up as Ukrainian Americans in America, there was a very limited number of styles. You had a vishonki, maybe 5 or 6 different variations. Now, oh my goodness, it is just the cultural art has of course evolved, and now the far range of vishonki, you can get them at vishonki, you can get them in all sorts of colors, and just very impressive. So I'm going to once again try to share my screen, and we'll see what happens this time. It is going to be we'll see. Oh my goodness. All right. So now we're going to go to here, and we're going to go skip through a few slides. What I'm hoping that you see now in a second, as soon as it's advances, is that I'm going to advance very quickly to where we left off. And I'm hoping now in a second that you see Franko walking underneath a rushnik. Is that a fair statement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's some photos from that ceremony. So this is the kids walking in, then they come on to a stage. And Nico, you can talk over me for a second here. You're standing here with who? Who are these two people?
That is the Historia teacher, that's Pan Dobenko, and then that's like the principal of this Ukrainian school, that's Pani Hegedok. So
I believe when we talked prior to setting this up, you mentioned that Pan Dobenko is actually your favorite teacher. Is that true?
Yeah, I just think that the way he talks, it's clear that he's very passionate about what he wants to teach. And he's not only trying to teach like what's built into the curriculum, but also kind of like the overall history of Ukraine.
That's a beautiful compliment for an instructor. Here's another picture. This is you standing on stage. And then after the ceremony, about an hour and a half ceremony or so with many speakers, some of truly great speeches, we have the recessional. And so now you have the kids coming down off the stage. The parents are there, each holding the rushnik they brought from their household. And then they lift it over the heads of the students as they process back through the auditorium. Oh, that one we're going to save. As they process back through the auditorium. And so Franko, I'm going to introduce you, even though you've been introduced already. I'm going to give a slightly shorter introduction of you. You are, in fact, a May 2025 graduate of the Ukrainian Heritage School in Jenkintown, and you're from the upper classes, whereas Vice Principal Udud takes care of the lower classes, the younger classes. You are a summa cum laude graduate from Abington High School, where you are a member of the winning chess team and a National Merit Scholar finalist. And you'll be starting, as Dr. Fett said, your freshman year at Drexel, majoring in computer science. So I also want to add to our audience, on both his mother and his father's side, Franko's family has played major roles in preserving Ukrainian culture and identity. Your grandfather was from Lviv. Your grandfather's mama was from Ternopil, and you are part of the Rudnytzky family. I think a lot of our viewers in Ukraine will recognize the cultural icon, Gregory Rudnytzky, church historian and playwright. So, Franko, from all indications, you are worthily following in your family's footsteps. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So let's start with talking about Ukrainian school, because this is something you and I have in common. Granted, 40 years apart. I too went to Ukrainian school. So you attended Ukrainian school all 12 years, right?
Yeah, well, 13 years if you include a pedagogika. It's like the preschool program.
That's a lot of Ukrainian education. So talk to me about Saturday mornings. When my siblings and I were doing this, our friends were sleeping in, our friends were watching TV. Today, I imagine your friends are, what's it called, doom scrolling on their phones, going to youth soccer, but not you. You and your siblings are getting up and going to school for the 6th day of the week. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, it definitely does feel unfair at times, you know, having to get up so early on what's supposed to be like kind of a relaxing day. But I think that like once you start to like actually learn about what you do in Ukrainian school and about all this like great Ukrainian culture and history, I think it definitely starts to become worth it, because you are taking time kind of out of your weekend to learn more about your culture, which I think is very important.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective, and especially to have it so early after graduating. I think I probably was really similar to you at that point. I think as I continued my education, especially now as you're headed to college, there I was amazed how useful some of the things I learned in Ukrainian school were. So I'm hoping that you have a really similarly positive experience. So what does the school day look like for a 12th grader at the Ukrainian Heritage School? What do you study? What are the subjects?
So in the 12th grade, there are 5 main subjects that are studied. The first one is just like the Ukrainian language, just like all the grammatical rules, just all sorts of just like language related things. And then you have the literatura, the Ukrainian literature. This is where it goes over all of the important Ukrainian literature throughout most of its history. And then the Ukrainian history, which is basically going back to the beginning of Ukraine with the Kievan Rus all the way up to modern Ukraine. And you have the Ukrainian culture, basically just going over everything culture related in Ukraine. And then finally the Ukrainian geography, basically how is it geographically located in Europe.
It's wonderful. Talk to me a little bit about the literary studies. I'm curious to hear about that.
So in the like literature aspect, we go over multiple time periods. We start off with like the really old literature, the stara literatura, with like Slovo Oporko, Ihrevi, and all those wonderful stories. And then that slowly shifts into more of like the classic Ukrainian literature with Shevchenko, Ivan Franko, all of them. And then we end off with just like contemporary Ukrainian literature.
That's really why is studying literature important? Do you guys talk about that? Why do you read the literary works you read? Why bother? Why read this stuff?
I think it is very important to kind of go over certain stories. Like, for example, I did read 2 stories that I had to do for my Ukrainian book report, and since lecture, I had to go over Zahar Berkut and Shon Narada, and I think those are 2 very important stories.
Oh, let me pause
really,
you for a second. Let me pause you. Zahar Berkut, Ivan Franko.
Yeah, Ivan Franko, and then Shon Narada is Panteleimon Kulish.
Thank you.
So,
All right.
And those are both just classic Ukrainian stories, and I think they both showcase kind of how Ukrainian leaders are able to kind of stand up in the face of oppression, and they can bring the Ukrainian people together in times of suffering and crisis, and that is important to show because, especially modern days now, with Ukraine being oppressed by Russia, I think that learning how the Ukrainian people were oppressed in the past by these similar people is very important to study and see like how it's similar and different from then and now.
Oh, wow. Those are profound insights. When I was in Ukrainian school, again, 40 years ago, we, to complete the school, we had to take an exam called the matura. And I believe this is a European practice, like a final exam, a cumulative exam for everything you've ever learned in your entire life. Do you all still have to do a matura exam?
Yep, the matura exam, it was basically, it's less of just like one test and more of like 5 separate tests just based on the 5 different subjects that are taken. So like for each subject that we're learning, at the end of the year, we'll basically have one large cumulative test basically on everything that was taught throughout that subject. And it really does kind of, it is probably one of the more difficult tests that will be taken in the Ukrainian Heritage School, just because it really is kind of everything that you've learned, even like not only that year, but like previous years as well. You'll just need to like really kind of recollect it all and just kind of put it all towards one exam.
Wow. 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 I hear this year, and I don't know if this is a typical of the Ukrainian Heritage School these days, or if this was something special just for your class. I hear this year there was a senior trip.
Yeah, there was a senior trip. This year we went to New York, and what we did in New York was we visited kind of like classic, I guess, like not really exactly Ukrainian landmarks, but we first went to the Statue of Liberty, and we went to Ellis Island to kind of see how the immigrants from Ukraine and other countries kind of went into America and how their process of immigration went. And then we also visited a Ukrainian museum in New York, which went over kind of how this like origin story of like classic Ukrainian dolls, these lalke, and how they are made. And we also got to make some of them, which is pretty cool.
Wow. When you were at the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, I mean, every immigrant family has these stories. I know that my mom talks about how when the ship approached after being at sea for days and someone saw the Statue of Liberty, she thought the boat would flip over because everybody just ran over and was, crying and rightfully so. I mean, to come from pain and sorrow to a place where you have hope, and look what that generation did. Look what they built. This is amazing. When you were, so how did it feel to be at Ellis Island at the Statue of Liberty? Were you thinking about your grandparents, or maybe not? Maybe this was just how was that?
I mean, it definitely was. It was really cool to see them all in person. In Ellis Island, we actually did see a video on how like the immigration process happened, and it really did kind of put into perspective on like how kind of willing these people were to leave their previous life to come here to join this American lifestyle. And it did like really make me think about my grandparents and how they were one of these people trying to escape the Soviet oppression in Ukraine and just trying to come here to America to find a better life. So it definitely was.
My youngest son and I are 40 years apart. He was born when I was 40. And that's significant because my father was born when his mother was 40. So when she came to this country with her 15, 14-year-old son, he basically no longer a child. At that point, you're taking care of your mother. And so I think about often, I look at my kid and just thinking, I can't imagine just uprooting everything and going someplace else. One, it has to be so horrible and so painful where you're leaving that you would leave, and two, it has to be so terrifying going where you don't know. So I thank you for sharing those experiences, and I'm so excited that there was a trip, and it sounds like a very thoughtfully planned trip. I'm going to invite Catastrophe and share my screen one more time. So we'll see how this goes. I want to show you a throwback photo. I think you'll both will enjoy this if I do this properly. So right now, hopefully you were looking at a picture of a young man standing in front of a map. Is that right? Can you see that? Okay. So Hriko, do you know who that young man is?
I have a guess, but not based off of this picture.
Okay, so it took me a while to figure this out too. So to our audience, this is Hriko's father, who is now the vice principal for the older classes, and there's a modern picture of him. So I was researching, preparing for today's program, I went and looked at the archival information for the Ukrainian Educational and Cultural Center and found this photo, and I could not believe it. And in fact, I did not think that was him. But then I look over to the right on him and to the left, and I recognize other kids that were in fact in this grade. So I'm sharing this picture because, because I think that's really cute that we found a picture of your dad, but I also want to share it because of the map behind it. The map behind it, or one very much like it, hangs in the Ukrainian Federal Credit Union branch that is housed in the Ukrainian Educational and Cultural Center, the same building where the Ukrainian Heritage School is. And the reason that's important is that when I walk in there to run errands, when I'm in Philadelphia, when you're standing in line, there's something to look at. You look at this map, and I look at this map and it brings tears to my eyes because again, like you, I went to Ukrainian school. I did the matura. Geography was one of the subjects, and the first thing you learn is what? Lviv, Kyiv, Kharkiv, Odessa, and then you learn about the various oblasti and about the mineral wealth, the resources, the natural resources associated with each region and stuff like that. And so I always found geography interesting, and it was interesting, but it was kind of like, it was interesting, but that's pretty much it. Now, standing in front of that map, oh my gosh, words that only theoretically had meaning: Mariupol, Bakhmut, Irpin, Bucha, Zaporizhia. Like, now that every single one of those city names is like etched into my prayers because of what's happening. And at the same time, it makes me grateful for my Ukrainian education and grateful to people like Vice Principal Udud, because had I not gone through Ukrainian school and this war happened, would I be able to, pray for Ukraine? Of course. Give money, donate money to support Ukrainian causes? Of course. I march and protest for you. Yes, I could do all that. But I would not have been able to advocate for Ukraine. I still feel like I don't know enough. I thought I knew everything there was about Ukraine until that war happened. All of a sudden, I felt like I knew nothing about Ukraine. But having that Ukrainian education made every year, I appreciate it more and more. I started appreciating it when I was in college, when there were things we were studying, like, wait a second, I know this. But also as a young adult, young professional, and even through today. So I want to open the floor to questions to anybody who'd like to ask, either Vice Principal Mariya Udud or recent graduate of the Ukrainian Heritage School, Gregory Rudnytzky. Anyone, if you was welcome to ask questions, open your cameras, and the microphone will be yours. And while folks are waiting, thank you both so much for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And huge apologies for the technical difficulties. Well, if we are not...
This was very fine. Dr. Deutsch, our former graduate dean, has a question right away. Please, Leonard.
Mr. Udud, what motivated you, inspired you to come to the United States?
It was a decision made by me and my husband way back before the war, before the Revolution of Dignity was in 2013. And it was the same passion, I think, as a lot of immigrants to have a better life. But it ended up that we didn't have a chance to come back because of the war, because of many historical events happening, right? And I still have a family back in Ukraine, and none of my parents or my brother wants to leave the country. So it's still heartbreaking for me to be so far away and not be able to connect to them. But at the same time, that's what I said on the first day of the war, like using the resources that we have here in the United States to connect to Ukraine and to support as much as we can. Being a vice principal is just the position, but being a Ukraine lover, Ukraine supporter from the family to wide way beyond the family is the most important. To speak to my American colleagues, to share the good knowledge about Ukraine. That's kind of a passion, and I think wherever we are in Ukraine or in USA or in Europe, it's still a great mission for us to expand the knowledge about Ukraine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you very much, Mariya. I need just to add my appreciation about everything that you are doing and commend you and Gregory on whatever happens. We have not just resource in you, but living proof that you can be an immigrant in the full sense of this word, and you can keep, especially today in this tragedy, you can keep your very strong identity to help people over there. That's, in fact, very new concept of immigration or relocation or whatever you call it. It's very strong moral part of it. Compared to when, say, 120 years ago, uncles of my grandmother came to the same Ellis Island that Greg mentioned from Russian Empire, from Mykolaiv, and we haven't heard about them over the 2 world wars and Civil War and Holodomor and everything. We knew they existed. We lost contact in the Second World War. Maybe their descendants are somewhere in New York City. We don't know. Today, not only due to technology, but due to people like you, these connections have very different fabric, very different sense. And I do not subscribe to the idea that leaving the old country, we leave it behind. It depends strongly not only on us, but also on the country. What the connections you forge, the connections you maintain, especially in this textbook example, we are living in history textbook, and what you are doing is very organic part of it. That's what I feel. Anara, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your expression of all your emotions and feelings. It's very, other expatriates can understand you. I am expatriate too. And expatriates, actually, they live in 3 worlds. They live in their own country, they live in a new country, and they live in the between, because it's difficult to understand in both sides. They are fully expatriates, correct? And that's why I think that they have a special mission to help both sides, both worlds to understand each other, correct? And that's what I thought about this. And as a young expatriates, what do you see any difference between younger Ukrainians who came recently and the older generation? How they are different? Both, of course, groups like Ukraine, their homeland, but at the same time, there's certain differences. And what do you think about this? And also another my question, how Ukrainians, actually expatriates and not only expatriates, also in Ukraine, what should be done in order to make their voice stronger, especially young people? What they should do, because they are less visible than older generation, and that's a very important question to see more younger Ukrainians actually internationally and in the United States, in Canada, how they communicate together, and it's very interesting for me. Thank you.
That's a big question.
I'm sorry for these difficult, different questions, but because you are touching very important issue, very important questions, and that's a future. It's a very important for this century.
And I try to answer as much as I can to this question, because we can get to this question through many sides. I do definitely see this generation of kids who came. First of all, the immigration has different waves and different purpose of immigration, right? And as of right now, kids and families are leaving the country because of the fear of being killed and about death, right? So that's the most scary, because that's not a choice. That's a need to leave the country. And that's not even discussed. But at the same time, being here in American educational system, I see how this approach of being included and the purpose of the diversity of this. I just recently was connected to one of the schools in Pennsylvania who've been asked about books about Ukraine, which is a great push for me to realize, yes, we are talking super loud about Ukraine, but at the same time, we see the need, and the people, like American people, still see and support us. They want Ukraine as a country to be visible in their in their school libraries. They want the books to be represented on the bookshelves. They want to meet the need of the Ukrainian kids who just came to the country and who are their students in their current schools. And I think that's the most important, to connect that, yes, the kids come to school and they will integrate into the class in the school community, but at the same time, school as a whole, seeing them as individual, as still carrying this heritage with them. That's what I see. And I know that Ukraine as a country right now doing a huge effort to push to recognize Ukrainian kids' education like abroad, to be recognized in case they want to come back to Ukraine and had a diploma of high school or something like that. So I think for both sides, we still see that people and the community see us, but we definitely have more to improve and to add to this. I couldn't make a connection between this generation and generation like Pani Katerina and her siblings, because I'm here in the country just decade, but I know there is a connection between this.
Well, and I think the terms are all sort of different. Like Anata used the term expat, but expat is not immigrant, immigrant is not refugee, right? These are very different circumstances. And I think they're so different that at the very core, they define or at least set the stage for your experience and your relationship with both the home country and I think your motivation for preserving the culture in your new country. For which I do wonder, had it not been for the, and I guess they were a combination of, well, I think our parents' generation, I think, were immigrants and refugees. Actually, they spent time in displaced persons camps. So actually, I don't know. If anybody in the call wants to kind of clarify these terms, that would be great. But if not, it's something to think about. But when they came here, they knew that their world was being destroyed back home, and they were determined to build it here, so that with their prayers and thoughts, hopefully, when Ukraine became free, the continuity would continue, and there would be a continued relationship. And that is what happened. And we're so lucky. We're so grateful for that. And it's so tragic that after years of free Ukraine, this nightmare is happening. And truly, it started in 2014. I do wonder, had it not been for the efforts of those immigrants to build up the community which there exists now, when this war happened, would there have been such an interest in Ukraine from the American public, right? There's so many, there's over 1 million people who grew up Ukrainian American, my generation, my year. So, and we know people, we work with people, people care about us, we care about people. So the idea, when I was growing up, nobody knew what a Ukrainian was. In fact, I have this really funny story where I was on a plane going someplace, and I thought I recognized someone from one of the scouting programs. And when he left to stretch his legs, I asked his seatmate, "Hey, is he Ukrainian?" And the guy said, "No, he's just sick." I'm like, "What?" Because he thought Ukrainian was like diabetic or something. I don't know. Like, he clearly had no idea what a Ukrainian was. And I think that was pretty normal back in the late 70s, early 80s. But when this war started, nobody was asking what Ukrainian was. Everybody knew what a Ukrainian was. And I think that kind of fueled the support of Americans, because it's no longer like, who's that? It wasn't some vague, distant, unknown group of people being persecuted by a bully. It was Ukrainians, and people know what Ukrainians are. And that's so one of the things, like, just to kind of bring us back to today's focus. The institutions that were set up by the immigrants who came to the Philadelphia area in the 1950s have played an absolutely vital role in the support Ukraine has today from the American people. And I'm so, so grateful for that. And I suspect everyone else is too. So you mentioned children's books, commercial here. This is an excellent children's book, and I will send you a copy. It was translated by our own Victor Fett. It is written by Grigory Frankovich, the premier children's poet in Ukraine, and it is absolutely beautifully illustrated. It's meant for kids. It's the experience of the war from the perspective of a little dog. Victor, if you want to say a few words about that, and then I'll do the program wrap up.
Thank you, Katerina, for mentioning this. I didn't think about it today, but yes, we are very glad to have had this project associated in a way with our program, because Grigory Falkovich, who spent first almost 3 years of war in Kolomea with his family, returned to Kiev, and we sent him greetings. He is a great friend of this program. He's 85 years old and still going very strong. And this book, the original book, was published in Lviv in early 2023 and won the title of the best Ukrainian book for children. The original text includes 11 short poems in Ukrainian, and it was my honor, with help of Katerina and her late father, Professor Rudnytzky, to translate it into meaningful English. My first attempt in Ukrainian English poem translation, in fact. So this is a collective effort, but it transcends the borders enough to say that illustrator of this great book, Irina Potapenko, she now lives in Portugal. She is also a refugee, and she keeps her amazing work illustrating children's books, and she's also an animator. You can see Irina Potapenko on Facebook. So the vibrance of this culture sort of is not quenched by the tragedy, I should say. On the contrary, it's an amazing culture which expresses itself so brilliantly that one doesn't have any comparisons. The one thing I tell everyone for over 3 years on this program, hundreds of days, we are witnessing history in front of us. Everyone is part of history. You cannot make any comparisons to previous histories, previous wars. Things are so unpredictable. We are in very new and strange world where anyone can matter. And obviously these transgenerational connections which appear through you, through Greg here, it's something our descendants will be proud of. You are not going quietly into history. On the contrary. Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to thank our two guests, Mariya Udud, Gregory Rudnytzky. Thank you for sharing your time, your insights with us. I'm going to say a few words in Ukrainian to our Ukrainian viewers. Дорогі браття і сестри в Україні, ми зберігаємо вас у наших щоденних думках і молитвах. Нехай милосердний Бог тримає вас у своїй опіці. До наступного тижня. Прощаємося.
Слава Україні!
Героям
Слава!